Well, hello and good morning, Brew Crew. I'm Eric, N1JUR, and it's going to be an interesting morning today. If those that aren't in the Snowmageddon, stream of things, good for you to hear. But yeah, we are rolling into a wonderful weekend, I'm sure, with a boatload of snow, and it's Winter Field Day on top of it. But we're going to address something here real quick. So, I'm Eric, like I said, N1JUR, and I have a co-host, I think, but she's somewhere in warmer climate and gnawing on a turkey leg, waving some magic wands and yelling,
Wingardium Leviosa.
Yeah, she's in warmer climate, like I said, with Disney. So we're going to let her have this week off for sure, but she will be back with us next week. And so we're going to quell those rumors very early on. No, there weren't layoffs. No, I didn't fire her. It's all good. So hopefully that clears the air here. There'll be no rumors starting. So all good on that, and glad to get that out there before we start to have to generate some headlines here. So good to see folks there in the chat. Rogers, good morning. Sean, K8KZ, good to see all you guys. Thank you again for hanging out with us this morning. And hopefully you guys have refilled your coffees and other libations there if you're so inclined. And let's kind of get into the show today. So if this is your first time here with, Brew and Activate, we are your park guides. Well, at least today. I'm your mentor and lover of all things POTA. So welcome to another Brew and Activate. As always, we like to get you caught up on a few things before we get into the chunk of today's topic. And we're going to be talking about Coax. So if you are, a ham, Coax is very much an important part of the equation there in getting a good activation out there, because without Coax, well, what do you got? Just a brick and this big stick in the air. So we'll hopefully dispel some of this myths and conversations here. Again, high level stuff, but we'll get more into it in a bit. So as always, if you can't catch us on the live stream every Friday mornings at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, then, you can always catch us up on Team Replay. You can head over and check out your favorite podcast, streaming services, your choice, and look up Brew and Activate. We're out there. And love to hear, feedback. If you're, so inclined, leave us a review there, just so, we know that you hear us loud and clear and you guys are enjoying this content. Every week, this is always an ad-free stream, so we like to kind of keep it that way. So we always can use your support. So it's a great thing to be able to help. You can do that through super chats, memberships, and we appreciate everybody who supported us. But if you don't do it that way, you can always head over to our storefront. We are always adding a bunch of different great things to the storefront. I'm working on a tumbler here for the official Brew and Activate coffee mug, or tumbler, I should say. So that's coming out soon. So keep an eye out there. But we've added a few new shirts and a few new cool ideas. So feel free to check those out and wear your Brew and Activate stuff proudly. So looking forward to it. And if you always want to continue this conversation, and we always like to do that. We suggest you head on over to our Discord, and if you need that link there, here it is in the comments here real quick. So you can come join our Discord, come be a part of the Live Framingham Discord. There's a bunch of great channels, obviously, that I'm a part of, and Brew and Activate is just one more over there, channel there. And so come join in on the conversation. It's always lively. And, you know, I think the last topic that we just talked about, I'm working on my POTA t-shirts for Co-Ed Naked. And so those that are part of the N1JUR channel in general know that, you know, Co-Ed Nakeds are what I grew up on, and, you know, like the brand, I always had a bunch of them in my t-shirt drawer. So I am very much kind of make a POTA spin on it. So, you know, go over and comment on that. Let me know what you think. We're going to be adding more to that, and hopefully, you know, we can get that back, and Gen X stand tall. So anyway, all right. And lastly, you know, you can always support the channel here simply just by clicking the subscribe button for both Shannon and I's channel. Shannon needs to kind of get the bump up. I mean, a lot of the YLs are starting to take off. It's really cool to see a lot more YouTube YLs out there making, you know, waves in the YouTube space there on ham radio. So go on, head over and support Shannon there. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe. And she is obviously live streaming this too as well, so make sure you're over there. Although I don't know if she's actually on her channel at the moment. She might be standing in some line at Disney. I don't know what she's doing at 10 o'clock. Maybe she's got to dress up like a princess. Who knows? We'll see. All good either way. All right, and let's dive into our POTA Minute today. I mean, we're kind of flying through the script here. Usually I kind of live a little... Actually, we'll take a little break here. I saw a few folks pop in there. Rabbit Ham, good to see you this morning. Awesome to see everybody here. It's always great to see the support, and definitely, please, you know, feel free to say hi. We'll make sure we give you a mention there. That's because I'm doing double duty here. Shannon does all of the great media stuff and keeps us humming along. So I apologize if I miss you there, but I want to make sure that, you know, we know that you're there, and, you know, things will be back on track next week. So with that, let's head over to our favorite segment, or at least Shannon's. All right, we are in the POTA Minute. This is where we take one small POTA idea and one real world observation and give it about 60 seconds. Simple and easy. We're going to kind of food for thought, plant the idea, maybe think throughout the day about this at work, or, you know, in your travels, or maybe doing your next activation. We're not here to settle anything. I'm just kind of get you thinking. So again, there's no right answer, no rule book. You know, just stuff that you start noticing kind of after a few activations, or maybe a few hundred hunts you've done. You know, if it's happened to you, well, say so in the chat. Let me know. If you do it differently, even better. Give us you know, feedback. We're always interested in sharing and learning and growing. So that's one way to be able to, you know, do it. So let us know how you feel there in the chat. So let's get into today's POTA Minute. Today we're talking power. And I love AI. Sometimes it comes out with some really interesting infographics there. Power, I'm going to talk about as a tool. Like, I know a lot of us talk about, it's like, oh, you know, if you're looking at radios, you know, the 20-watt radio or 100-watt radio, everyone always goes to 100-watt radio because more power is always better, right? Well, you know, it's not a requirement. You know, even though we are in the downturn of the solar cycle 25, power is not everything. You know, sometimes turning the power down actually improves pileups. Surprising. I've tried it. I've done it. I'm very impressed with the fact that, you know, if I you know, adjust those settings, I can kind of get a little bit better activation, or at least get those hunters that, you know, I'm really kind of looking for an opportunity to hear me. You know, it actually improves some of the pileups. It improves flow and definitely audio quality. I mean, you know, obviously, if your signal, and we already did an episode before on this, if your signal or your audio is very overdriven, modulated, you know, then, you know, throwing more power behind it is just going to make it even worse. So think in those senses that, you know, maybe turn the power down, using just enough to be just efficient. Both helps your radio, but at the same time also maybe helps that activation. You know, clean, efficient, and polite. I know that last one's really, really tough a lot these days. People tend to cut lines a lot, and, you know, feel like they are, you know, the only man or woman on the band. So it's not about watts. It's not about control. You know, and if you're already getting the contacts rolling in, then you might be already winning. Simple as that. So that's the POTA minute. Stick that one in your hat. Think about it. Let me know what you think in the comments there. Am I right? Am I, you know, am I off base? Either way. All right. Let's go back to our main view here. Good to see you there, Sean, W1SAB's in there this morning, and James Ski OB668. Yeah, in Oklahoma, not participating. Yeah, Winter Field Day is going to be interesting. I actually have a good segment here. Kind of two things just kind of here that I wanted to bring people's attention. If you haven't, you can always head over to my channel or head over to Live Free and Ham. This evening, we have our monthly happy hour with the Northeast Ham Radio crew. That's myself, Mike, Tortoise Overland, Grouch, N3VAN Radio, Todd. I mean, there's a list of Marvin. I mean, I'm forgetting people, and I apologize. Shannon's would be normally on it if she wasn't busy playing Disney. The one thing, you know, that we're all, you know, there, we all hang out. We don't all stream to one channel. We all stream to everybody's channel. The idea is we're going to be talking about Winter Field Day. It's going to be interesting, to say the least, because if those are in the New England area like myself, you know, we're going to get a huge cold spell. You know, it's already starting today. It's going to be really bad by Saturday, and it's going to be like in the negative numbers. And our club is doing Winter Field Day, at least my own personal club. We had, after, you know, lengths with the station captains and the EB board, said, okay, well, we're not going to stop the diehards. They're going to be the ones heating the tents. They're going to be the ones out there. So they are going to be setting up. They're going to be operating. And so, you know, it's going to be cold. I'm a wuss, you know. I like, if anybody knows me, I like warmth and comfort. I'll take 100-degree summer day over, you know, negative 20 anytime. So the one thing in my mind is, you know, more power to you. I'll help support you, but I'm going to be doing it from the comfort of my own home. But those that might be, you know, in the snowmageddon, you're probably better off staying safe and operating from your own home if your antennas can survive, and you can, you know, get out there and make contacts as your own home station. Which, it's funny because I know Winter Field Day's spirit is about emergency communications and getting out and being outdoors. Old man Winter decided to say, here, hold my beer, hold my coffee. We're going to do something different. Let's see if you can actually adapt. It's going to be tough. I don't know. What's folks say there in the chat? Good to see you there, Ted. Good morning. Moon Man, good morning. Ed as well. Yeah, there you go, Chris. Good to see you this morning. What's everyone's field day plans? Anybody actually going to brave the elements and get out there? Maybe check out maybe with their clubs Winter Field Day, or is the consensus everybody's working from home? So I wouldn't say less and less there, James. You know, hey, we're not all sad hams. We're just, you know, you do your best you can. I mean, if you can't get out, totally understandable. You could try to set up what you can and make contacts. I might operate from my shack. I have to head out to visit my dad in the Cape on Saturday, so I might do it from the road. But Rabbit Ham doing anti-field field day there. Is that just are you making an FT8 stance there? Is that your plan? You know, no FT8, no Winter Field Day for Rabbit Ham. Yeah, Ted, good idea. I know we're supposed to get hit hard, and Ted's also part of our club there here in the in New Hampshire area, and so yeah, a few of our intrepid club members are setting up. I give them all the credit, but I'll watch from a distance. So, question: I'm curious, why anti-field day? Are we just skipping out because weather's kicking your butt, or is it just there? Oh, no, anti-field day is an uncommon thing. Yeah, okay, understood. Yeah, it is touted as that, and you know, for a long time, summer field day was sort of like that too, as well. People very much, you know, touted it as emergent communications, treated it that way, and then it just got to, you know, way off the rails and to, you know, contesty like, and it still kind of is, even though they try to pull it back. But yeah, I'm with you there, Ted. I will not, you know, operate anything below 32. I mean, that's just too cold for me. Yeah, okay, nice. Yeah, I definitely see the bands can be flooded there for sure. And it'll be very easy to make contacts. There's no doubt about that. I mean, and if you're in a few of those folks that do also POTA parks, it definitely helps there for the logs. I don't know. Emergencies for me. I mean, it's actually an interesting show. I mean, POTA for me in general is kind of an emergency exercise, even though we don't treat it that way. I mean, we're very much working our radios and learning how we set up our stations and basically get ourselves prepared for an emergency. Whether that will ever happen or not, I don't. It's not for me to judge, but at the same time, if you don't know your gear, then, what's the other alternative? Practice an emergency. So totally understand there. Okay. You're definitely, opinion understood. And I understand why FT8 is FT8. I mean, that battle's been, since the dawn of time. And for them to run it the way they do, I know Marvin, great guy, and his brother Mike. Both those guys have put a lot of time to improve Winterfield Day, and and if it's not everybody's cup of tea, that's the nice part about it. I don't understand contesting, don't participate into a lot, and all of that, the point stuff there. But I know people that are just like that's all they live, eat, and breathe. So all good. Operate from a park would be really good. Although make sure you're definitely doing it from your car there, Ted, because it is not something you want to. I would say, Sean, if you're definitely in the path of Snowmageddon, batteries are going to be premium there for sure. I think. I know I've already gone through the typical generator fire ups and testing and making sure I have extra gas here, and I did a quick visual inspection of some of my antennas, at least here at the house. So I know they're actually, still standing and working and not going to, fall over from excessive ice or whatever. So yeah, definitely doing all that. That's always a good prep for, this impending storm that's coming, depending on if you're in the path of it or not. And definitely, exercise some of your equipment there. This is a perfect time to be able to go through that a little bit, make sure you have it all set up. As we always say here, it's the milk and bread marathon. Everybody runs out and grocery stores become insane. But I'm always of the adage it should be tequila and Doritos, or some your flavor of candy and a drink of choice. Why buy bread and milk? All right, well. With that, I think we're kind of ready to dive into a little bit of our, Coax discussion here today, and find a little bit. Hopefully, again, I apologize in advance if you are we'll say, expert level in Coax. This is kind of a general primer, kind of food for thought today, because I figured I'd keep it a little light because I'm running all of the controls here. I'm also the cook, the cleaner, and the bottle washer. And so, it makes it a little challenging. But Shannon, I have to say, and you're going to hear it from me, but don't ever repeat this. She makes the show run way better. And I know I'm going to say that because I know I don't see her on chat, but we'll see if she picks up on it. All right. So let's get into our Coax discussion today. So head on over to my favorite board here. We aren't doing a whiteboard today. We're going to do a little bit of quick slide stuff. I'm trying to keep it very light, with the hopes, obviously maybe glean something from this. It might be very, high level for you, but feel free to add your comments in to the chat and let me know what you think. So we're going to talk Coax, big idea, high level, from a fifth grader level, because I think one of the things we always overlook, especially when we get into the hobby the first time. I mean, remember way back when you first got into the hobby, maybe even into POTA, and you were thinking gear. What did you do? You either heard from the seasoned hams, a few other people, or maybe picked up on YouTube that you had to go, pick up this style coax, RG8X, RG8XU, LMR 240, LMR, 400. All of those buzzwords might kind of all pass through your peripheral view there. And you might have been like, well, okay, it boils down to two things. What am I going to bring with me, and how much does my budget allow, kind of thing, or where can I scrape together something? Or maybe you're just so ham ingenuity, kind of, I can do it myself better. You grab the RG58 that might have been over in the corner of your shack for a long time on an old spool that you picked up from a yard sale or something like that, and you're like, oh, I'm going to use that. Well, we're going to kind of talk a little bit around that, hopefully give you a little bit of better insight with some really, I think, good elements. And I have to thank AI for some of this stuff because they, I would have spent days and months putting a lot of these infographics together. But, based off of, I came up with, I think it kind of visually explains what we're trying to attempt here. And again, my apologies, but we're on that fifth grader level. So let's get into the slides here. So the first one, obviously, as we mentioned here, this is just basically, we're talking about pipes. And when I talk about the internet, because my background here is in IT, so when I have to explain to someone who's not in IT, a lot of times you have to come up with some good visuals. Well, in IT, when we talk about how data transfers between two machines and how the internet, sends your web page of something supersweet.com into translates that into a web page, well, there are pipes there are connection points, and there are, many layers that your information travels. So, we aren't so lucky in the ham radio world to have a wireless connection between our radio and antenna. And if someone's developing that, I'd be curious to kind of test it, because that for me is just mind-boggling to go RF wireless to an RF transmitter on antenna wireless, then go wireless again. I mean, it's like putting two horses and no cart together. I don't know. It just doesn't make too much sense, but it'd be an interesting kind of thing to play around with. But we very much, in ham radio, coax is synonymous as the words CW and sideband. I mean, you have to have it in order to be able to play. So, what better to kind of talk about it a little bit, whatever it is. And I think the really simple analogy is kind of you have a radio that makes a signal. Coax is the connection between you and your antenna. You can't have it if it's broken or disconnected in some form or fashion. What do you have? Well, a big giant dummy load on one end and a big stick in the air that's doing nothing but, look anonymous or whatnot. So, very much a lot of us need to think in the lines that a good coax is the good pipe. It leaks less. If you have poor coax, well, you're going to leak more. And we'll talk a little bit more what that leak is about and why, and how important it kind of plays in it. But the bottom line is if you've only got one type of coax with you and that's all you have, and the nearest ham radio store is, days away, and you can't ship anything, within 24 hours, well, you got to use what you have, and any pipe still moves, that water. So that's kind of the basis here. And so, I know it's very high level and you're probably like, well, what the hell are you talking about? Well, let's kind of dive in a little bit here, a little bit more. And so, if we talk about coax and talk about in the garden hose, and you probably heard a few, maybe resources, ARLs put stuff out, people have talked around this, if we think in terms of the garden hose, it kind of makes sense. So RF's your water, your radio's pumping your signal into and over and through that cable. The antenna is the sprinkler in the scenario. And if you think about that analogy, well, the coax, the connection points between those two devices, length, type, materials, all of that stuff plays into whether or not you're taking all of your hard-earned effort, meaning your voice, you're tuning in the radio to make your voice modulate the best way possible. You're filtering, not so much filtering, but all of the stuff that you're transmitting your signal across the radio to, you're going to pump that through that pipe. And that pipe could be too long. It could be poor materials. It could be maybe even sometimes, too short or brittle, or, not shielded enough. And that can affect all of that. And so all that hard-earned RF you're putting through the wire, it might be just turned into heat, might turn into nothing. It might, you're not putting the best foot forward when it comes to doing things like POTA. So like I said in the examples here, maybe your hose has got more leaks, meaning your jacket's a little brittle. Some coaxes that we, will kind of go into a little bit might have a stiffer jacket and not as flexible, and that can cause cracks in your jacket. And a crack can allow RF in, can cause more RFI. Maybe it's cheaper thin. And, when I first started in ham radio 30 years ago, RG58 was the only stuff that I could get my hands on. And I built a lot of, kind of just listening antennas and stuff like that from RG58. But as I learned, RG58 wasn't really that great if I had really, really poor coax, meaning that not well shielded. I get a lot of RFI, alternator whine, that type of stuff all across my lines. And if I had too long of a length of it, it became, its own resonant kind of approach. So thinking of those things. And then the other thing is when you're buying coax, we talk along the lines of feel and texture and stuff like that. Well, if your coax is super strong, like if you're running LMR 400 everywhere you go when you're out on POTA, that stuff is pretty brittle, not brittle, but pretty stiff. And you add cold weather to that, that makes it even more stiffer. So, you introduce maybe more kinks, it doesn't coil well. I'm from the old audio world, and as being an apprentice, my mentor at the time taught me how to properly coil coax. I don't know about you, but how many times have you gotten maybe with POTA with a friend, and their coax literally has got like all the figure 8 twists and it's all tied up in a knot, and you're like, how do you function with this? And it's got little kinks in it. Well, those little kinks start to add more problems to your signal and how it actually goes from radio to antenna. Yes, friction loss and size is a big thing too as well. Good point there, Rabbit. I was noticing that. One thing I'm not talking about is diameter, and when we may, and if you guys want me to dive deeper in and talk about velocity factor and all of those other elements that we aren't going to really kind of touch upon too much in today's initial, we'll call it primer. Those all factor in, and using the same thing as a fire analogy. Diameters of hoses and how fast you push water through that plays into the fact of a lot of things, especially in radio. So just kind of if you're locking something in your brain, sometimes if your coax is too long, you might have more RF loss. If it's too cheap or thin, again, RF loss. You might not be able to get that full 100 watts or that enough of the power that you're putting in from the radio out through the antenna. Or maybe you just got kinks, or maybe it's sitting you do a lot of winter activations and the coax itself is pretty much in snow all the time. You don't clean it off. You just kind of coil it up and throw it in the back of your pickup truck or back of your trunk. Or for those British folks here, in the boot. You're eventually gonna wear your coax down. It's gonna cause more leaks. It's not gonna be as efficient. So let's kind of talk why it matters. Well, we kind of already, I think, have brushed upon this a little bit. Field activations punish coax. I can't tell you guys, we all just kind of assume that our coax is going to take it. It's got a thick jacket on it. Well, then it should be able to take the abuses of stuff. Well, you drag it across, cement, or gravel, or you pull it through mud, or you pull it through dirt and dust. All that stuff can affect both your connectors, the coax, the shielding, all of that over a period of time. You might not visually see that stuff, but over a period of long use and abuse, it's going to start to add more complexity, and efficiency is going to start to diminish very quickly. The big thing, and I do this a lot, and you may not see this yourself, but we all have our coax, and we have a short run to the antenna, and then we have the extra coax of a 25-foot run coiled up by our feet. How many times when you go around the back of the radio, you accidentally step on your coax? That over time starts to fragment your cable, starts to cause breaks, and starts to deteriorate the shield, the braid, and then maybe the center conductor in there. And you might start to see this, or you might not see it initially, but as you start to use this stuff over a period of time, you might start to see your radio starts making disconnects, your high SWRs, things like that are all kind of symptoms and signs of just the coax itself being overly abused and just needs to either be replaced or looked at a level. And the constant rolling, and I do this when we were in the music industry, and those that might know, when you're coiling cables, you have to go with the natural feel of them, because eventually if you introduce those kinks or you introduce those weird twists, that starts to affect the cable and the performance of the cable when it was built. And that can add or introduce RFI, and can introduce outside forces to the cable that you may never see visually, but over a period of time it can even wear the connectors or a strain release and that type of stuff. A lot of coax today, when you get it, unless you're on the high end side of stuff, don't have a lot of really good strain relief on the connector end. So the constant pulling, constant reconnecting, those can all add to your battle of trying to keep the coax working the way it needs to. Yes, Chris. We possibly could be talking about kinks. It's a little too early in the morning, but yes, if you've got a few that you want to share that's PC, feel free. All right. So, what things can actually make coax a little bit better? Well, obviously, shorter is better. I know that is kind of a duh moment for some, but some people might just be like, oh, I'm going to go buy 50 foot. I know when I first started, I'd go into HRO here in Salem, New Hampshire, and I'd be like, oh, I look at all the velocity factors and everything's built off of 100 feet. And so I'm like, oh, well, I'm okay and I'm fine within 100 feet, so I can go with the 50 foot and I'll be okay. Or I can go with a, 75 foot, pre-cut length kind of thing. Yeah, you could, but think in the terms of like, the performance of the cable has to push a lot more of that RF through. And over a longer cable, you could probably shorten yourself up. 25 foot's a really, really good length. I have most of my bags set up that way. And it's always easier to move your operating station closer than it is to, move it farther away. So kind of thinking those things, and then, the over thing, 25 foot, always beats 50 foot, and 50 foot always, and once you get past 50 foot, in my mind, you start to introduce, some losses, and you're just kind of, adding more bulk to your kit. Like why pack more, especially with coax, even if your POTA activations are literally 10 feet away from your vehicle or 20 feet away from your vehicle at a park, lighter coax, smaller lengths of coax are going to go a lot longer, and definitely give you the benefit of the doubt. Lower loss always helps, but isn't magic. And this is the kind of one of the things that I think people forget is, yeah, you might have a lower loss cable, meaning like maybe you're running an LMR 400 out there in the field and you've got the LMR 400 Flex from Messi and Poloni. You went out and spent the mega bucks on it and you were like, well, I'm going to get the best I can for the money I have, and you get the most flexible cable. Well, yeah, it is, but it's also a little heavier than, say, something like RG8X or RG8XU. There are very much equally good cables for things in HF that you don't have to run at super major expense. So that'll help your equation of getting the most efficient power from the radio to your antenna. And, ultimately, if we could, literally run a short piece of, 1 foot from your antenna to your radio, you'd have very little loss. But at the same time, that's almost impossible for most people to do because both you have to watch about RF exposure. But secondly, you're not going to run that antenna that close because you can introduce SWR, fluctuations. You can do a number of things. So we try to put our antenna a safe distance away and, think in minds of like, okay, 25 foot is a very good space to play in. And then the last one, a working cable. Again, I go back to this, but it's what you got, run what you brung, as they kind of say in a lot of sports. Is a working cable beats a perfect one left at home. So if all you have is an RG58 cable in the back of your car and you don't want the activation to go to waste, well, yeah, feel free to use that. It's okay. You're not going to do damage. You're just not going to get the efficiency that you expect out of your LMR 400 or RG8X you brought with you. And Ed says, take a 30, 50, and 75 foot. Wow. Okay. So that's a lot of coax for sure. So I know for me, like the only time I usually pack that much coax is when I'm going to like a winter field day or a summer field day, or our POTA, 24-hour POTA. We were packing different lengths for different purposes. But yeah, if you can definitely keep those, weight down, because that is a lot of coax to carry with you, depending on what style it is. Yeah, if it works for you, definitely do it. And that's the other thing too, is we aren't going to we're touching more along the lines HF, and James kind of said this. HF, definitely you can kind of get away with. You have a lot more wiggle room, but once you start running VHF and UHF modes, yeah, you really have to, the power efficiency, the type of cable, and the antenna setups are all going to play in hard because of the frequency of the band that you're operating on, and the VHF UHF requires you can. I've seen it done. I've actually been. I've been at events where people just use RG58 for VHF UHF. not the best stuff, but in essence, it's back to, rule number 3, a working cable beats something that you left at home. You're not going to get all of that power, that 50 watts you're putting down the wire, because the cable is just so inefficient. So, and not built for being able to get that power down that pipe quick enough. All right, so here's a kind of little, common coax types that we kind of touched on. So maybe you're new here. I don't know. I know obviously a few folks are regulars here. So if I'm kind of just beating a dead horse, my apologies. I'm going to kind of fly through this pretty quickly. The ones I usually know and know well, the RG58, RG8X, 240, and 400. 316 kind of falls into that too as well. That's that super thin stuff that you see a lot. But the 316, you really have to have short lengths of it to actually like get any good efficiency out of it. Anything longer than that, and it's just kind of like an open-ended, leaky fire hose. It just becomes less efficient. But it's super thin and super small and super ultra light. So if you're running small QRP kind of setup, you're going to have something like that in your bag more than something like 240 or 400. RG58 is the basis of kind of everything. It's a skinny hose, works fine for short runs. If you can get away with a small, like 10 or 15 foot section, you might be all right with that. And that might perfectly work for your kit. Pretty light. RG8X, definitely a step up. A lot of folks in the chat has said that's what they use. I have a lot of RG8X in my bag too as well. It's a little strong. It's still skinny in the sense of the diameter of it. It's a little bit more flexible in certain materials that you can get made with it. And they vary across the board. So manufacturers, connector types, all of that type of stuff. Most of that stuff you're either going to find on BNC or you're going to find on PL259 style connectors. So yeah, it tends to be the go-to for a lot of POTA activations, and people just recommend it. I do as well. If you want to step up to that and you're playing in those VHF, UHF modes, 100% go 240, 400. Nice upgrade for 240. I think it's not you don't get priced out of the market fast when you buy 240, so you don't have to worry about like spending a fortune. And you can find some manufacturers like ABR and Messi and Poloni that have equivalents, if not the same stuff, that are pretty well priced and definitely a good cable. And it's a good balance between that and 8X. I carried when I first started. I started with 240. I found that it just got a little heavier in my bags, and especially my antenna bags, because of the length and how I stored it. I didn't feel I was compressing it too much, so I stepped back down to 8X, and it suits the bag well and works well. 400. I run 400 at home here in the shack. I've got like 3 runs out to the back woods there, and that stuff is heavy. That stuff is strong. That stuff is efficient. But it's not something I'm taking to a POTA every week when I go out and activate. It very much provides you this reliability, both for VHF and UHF, and all the lower bands too as well. You will get efficiency out of it. There are a few manufacturers that play the game on connection types and coax shielding and braiding and double braiding and insulating properties between the center conductor and so forth and so on. And again, just as a little note, if you guys want to, me to dive into some of those things and bring on a few folks that, can talk that stuff, we can go really, really nerdy on that and really get into some of the details. Again, really high level primer here and kind of getting you thinking a little bit more and how you have your stuff set up. The biggest thing out of all of that is that if your coax weighs more than your radio, yeah, you and I, we need to talk here a little bit, because you shouldn't be bringing something like a 1-inch hard line with you. I know that's a super efficient and you're going to put the most power through it. There are only very few small occasions that you'd want to bring hard line with you, but it's not out on a POTA activation. And if you are, let's have a discussion and see what we can do to lighten the load a little bit. All right, so let's get into our myths of some of the coax here real quick. These are just very high-level ones that I found that most people were talking about in Reddit and other places when we're talking about coax. Obviously, this is myth number 1. You need the best coax or your POTA won't work. 100% false. You, like I mentioned before, you don't have to have anything except the coax that you have with you. That will be efficient enough to get you out in the field, have fun, and make contacts. Once you kind of get through what I call the honeymoon stage, then you're going to be in a better place to decide, hey, I'm going to invest a little bit more in this area. Because a lot of times, think about this. You're a POTA activator and you're using what you have. You have maybe a 706 Mark II-G, and you bought yourself a G5 RV that you've put up out in the parks. Perfect setup. Works perfectly fine for most hunters out there. Gets them out there. They start using it and they're happy. They're making contacts. They're having fun. Yes, 7/8 hardline would be very hard to be able to maneuver around on a Super Duty. But the one thing that you're going to want to think about is that, when you get past that honeymoon stage and you figure out your gear, you figure out your POTA style, you figure out how you operate, well, maybe start to think of improving on one element at a time over your POTA career or your POTA Go kit. Radio is obviously the first thing people think of, and they're like, oh, if I improve the radio, it's going to help me get more efficient. I'm going from 20 watts to 100 watts. Well, yeah, okay, you get more power, but, what about the stuff along the line? So, I usually recommend new activators as they start to kind of get used to it. The first thing that they do is you get better coax. What are you using? How can you improve upon it? And if you haven't already started at the buy once, cry once kind of philosophy, where coax is, you bought the best you possibly could afford, just short of buying 7/8 hardline or whatever it is, then yeah, then you've already done yourself good at that point. Just work on the maintenance of making sure that pipe there is 100% working efficiently for you. So when you do upgrade the radio or you do change the antenna, you're getting the best possible scenario, and perfect storm for you when you go out and activate. So again, it's false because people activate with random wires. They use compromised antennas. They might be using QRP power. It really doesn't matter because the antenna is going to be more important than the coax in that configuration. Prove me wrong. I would say, if you have a really, really good antenna or you bought the best antenna money can buy and you have a radio and you're running RG58, totally fine. Go ahead, learn how to perform or tune your antenna to the best scenario possible to get the best efficiency out of that antenna, and adjust your radio as needed, and then work the coax a little later. Because for what it's worth, HF is very forgiving in the nature of how it gets RF down the wire and where it goes. And so yeah, there are a lot of other factors, but myth number one, yeah, definitely you do not need the best coax when you do POTA. Myth number two, LMR 400 will make me louder. No, it's mostly false. Now, here's the thing is that, again, for those folks that do the buy once, cry once kind of approach, well, yeah, if you can afford 400 and you don't mind lugging 400 around with you, and maybe it's the flexible, variety of it, and it's not as the original stiff version that we see that most people use in their home shacks, it's not going to make you louder. You got to remember RF is, we'll say, independent of your signal getting out, because you have other variables that you have to factor in. And back to myth one, where I was saying, yeah, your antenna is really more efficient. If you've got really good coax, it doesn't really matter what you put down for the signal if your antenna is not super efficient for the band you're operating in. And we talked a lot about that when we talked about resonance in previous shows. So if you want to go back to the previous episodes, you can check those out. Those were about 2 weeks ago, I think. We talked about resonance and talked about antennas and having the best efficiency and learning how to tune those things, because that'll definitely help. But where it's mostly false is that, obviously short runs will help with better coax. The difference is really not super noticeable. It's not like you're going to see like an S3 to S8 jump. You might see a little bit of a, S3 to S4, kind of things. And the really only way it's going to help you give the best bang for the buck is, again, VHF, UHF. We all know that, we talk to VHF, UHF folks that are out there activating and doing, the VHF, UHF contest. They are running that type of coax because they know the efficiency. They got to get the power out there. They got to make the best signal, but they've optimized all of the other components in that chain to be able to make it the best efficient process. Yeah, I would say, James, yeah, you're right. 100% POTA does not need to be like your home station. Again, your home station is very much you set it up once and you barely make changes along the line. You might improve the radio and you might improve the antenna, but the coax, pretty much is going to be set and forget, because you didn't want to have to rip it out of the wall later, because you want to upgrade to whatever. You're going to change the line farther down. Like maybe you're running 400 up a tower or up a, tree, and you want to go and put in a tower, you're going to put some 7/8 hard line in, or, half inch or whatever be the case. And so you're going to use those points to be able to get your, efficiency better. Or you're going to do even some of the, the crazier stuff is like, oh, I'm going to put the amplifier at the base of the antenna kind of thing. And, they'll improve all of those things along the way. But very different. You're not going to do a lot of that same stuff when you're out doing POTA, because POTA is really a portable kind of style of operating, and it has its own, kind of unique, situation to kind of deal with when you're in it. All right, let's just kind of poke around here. So hopefully I haven't seen a lot of folks fall asleep here. Good to see you in there, TJ. And Tortoise, good morning, sir. Good to see you there, bud. Yes, and yeah, well, maybe he does. He is a firefighter, so that would make sense. All right, so the last myth here of our kind of 3 myth things is myth number 3 is using cheap coax is pointless. Well, no, not really. I mean, it's coax. It still makes contacts. It still activates parks. The only problem is cheap coax is if it's bad, it's got water inside the coax itself. It's got bad connectors on it. It could be the brand and type of coax. Like, I mean, there are some factors that you can get RG58 that's 75 ohm instead of 50 ohm, and that makes a big difference with your radio. And so you have to do some magic there to make that happen. All of those other factors can make it worse. But in essence, if you got the right cable and you got it, the right fit for your radio, you just kind of have to pay attention to that coax more than you would with something that's a little bit more efficient, a little bit more, a little bit more money, but at the same time, you don't have to break the bank to buy better and more efficient coax. There's a nice middle ground a lot of times. So think in those terms. How much work do you want to do on the back end versus how much do you want to play POTA? All right. So bottom line is that, we really want to make sure that the condition of that coax is better than, say, the brand, because a lot of, as you might see as you shop around for coax out there, the Messi and Polonies, the ABRs, the Times Micro, all of those guys out there, all of them have their own variety. All of them kind of follow little variants of like how they construct them and what the materials that they use. You do have to understand, material properties and how they interact with the cable, whether the braid is pure copper over tin copper, it kind of really just goes, sometimes it makes your head spin as you're going through it. But, it's also good information to kind of learn, because if you understand how your coax behaves, then these other things, when we talk about water inside the shield and, broken shields, water inside the coax, that type of stuff is all going to, basically impact the functionality and use of the cable there. Pilot coax. Interesting. Okay. All right. So let's talk about POTA Smart coax choices. This I kind of alluded to, and I'm going to just kind of fly over this pretty quickly because I think, everyone kind of gleaned that earlier. Shorter coax is always better than longer coax. 25 foot, and I saw a lot of folks in the comments, RG8X. Can't go wrong with it. Very, not super expensive. You won't break the bank in buying it. 25 foot is a nice little sweet spot if you can find it. And here's a little tip. When you go in, if you have the luxury of going into like a Gigaparts or a ham radio outlet, or maybe your coax, dealer, there's basically a cable company in your local area you can buy and procure stuff from. You might want to check the shelves and see what they have on it. And my safe bet is that more than likely you will not find too many of a selection of the 25-foot RG8 coax. And there's a reason why for that, because everybody who knows coax well and understands coax knows that that's the sweet spot for being able to have the most efficiency and the best balance and the better reliability, because it falls into better construction materials and stuff like that. So when you're in HRO and you're looking, I guarantee, and I've been in there a couple of times, I've always had to go with the 50-foots, or I've had to order the smaller varieties because they ran out of stock. And so it's one of those things you're going to want to, really kind of think about when you're, going through the process. But the connectors, we all forget about connectors. And I should have grabbed my Messi and Poloni connectors because I love them. the connectors are critical. I mean, how the heck do we hook them up to our radio? Well, a lot of us, we all have seen the YouTubers talk about their Hamfest trips for, buying good connectors over crappy connectors. They do mean a lot, and they will affect your operation. Not so much per se of loss in power a lot of times, but more just the reliability, the construction, the materials, whether they're thin-walled or thick-walled, that type of stuff. I love the Messi and Poloni Evo connectors. They are a little pricey. There are knockoffs on Amazon, and there are a few that I will, if you're interested in knowing what those are, these are the rebuildable connectors. And the reason why I'm going to tell you why I love them the most is because these connectors provide, one, reliability. They're strong. They're very robust, and they can take a beating. But two, I love the fact that they're rebuildable. Like if I ever have to cut the end off, I can reuse that coax connector and either have a replacement tip, which is basically all you have to do to rebuild the connector with, or you can, if you're good enough and you've soldered it on well to the center conductor, you can unsolder that tip and then reconnect it to another section of coax or shorten that up. So if you can get yourself a hand on some of the Evo connectors from Messi and Poloni, I'll have over in my shopping cart. Not my shopping cart, in my Amazon storefront. The ones I use that are Amazon knockoffs for RG8X, 400, and what's the other ones I use? They don't make them smaller than that, I think. But phenomenal connectors, well worth the investment, well worth having them out in the field, and they're field ready. That, I mean, literally, if you get yourself a pencil solder pen, which I have in my truck, I can basically do a coax field repair in 5 minutes, and we're back up and running, and the activation's not shot. So, kind of something to think about. Yes, the image is in. Yes, I just noticed that too myself, which is in and of its own a connector that we all love to hate. Because if you know connectors and end connectors, they're very heavily used in the VHF UHF world. Because of the reliability and strength, supposedly. If you can tighten them down the right way, they'll stay connected. So yeah, good to see you in there, Mike, this morning. And let's see if I missed anybody. I said hello to TJ. And if I didn't say or I missed somebody, my apologies here. I'm just kind of going back through. So yeah, I would recommend RG8X to kind of start with your POTA kit. Again, it's a good balance, but pay attention. If you're a VHF, UHF operator, and I know Mike is a good example of one there, he very much knows that type of coax is important. Good quality coax is going to go a long way to getting your signal out there, and very much needed for the higher bands. All right, so let's see what else I got here. Oh, yeah, so yeah, good strain relief. I already talked about this, kind of just quick slides. So this is kind of my poster child for coax here a little bit. This is, coax for me is your antenna is the hero. Remember that. Without antennas, I mean, we just got a bunch of dummy loads, for most of the time, our activation. So your antenna is always going to be the hero of the story. Operator is your plot test. Coax is going to matter, but it's not, like it says, it's not the hero of the story. You can get away with weaker coax, still make contacts, still have fun doing POTA, but coax is going to improve your efficiency, improve the RF, improve your overall operation. Yes, Mike, you're correct. HF is definitely forgiving, and VHF does not. VHF basically tells you to go pound sand if you're not using the good quality stuff. But this is kind of a good infographic here. It says antennas. We a lot of times look at that because we all when you first start in the hobby, you're thinking like, oh, my radio is the thing. The radio is the focus. And no, antennas a lot of times will help you. I have done several videos on playing with certain end-fed wires over vertical. All of those kind of play into the efficiency and how much you get your RF out there, and whether or not you're hearing more or reaching more. So, all right, last piece here. So I want to just basically stress this really quickly. So if you, and I probably already said this, but I'm going to say it again. If you already own coax that works, just go activate. If you can get anything out of this today, what you've got in your bag, if you've got, stuff that you've already bought, work, use it. And if it's working, great. Simple as that. You can worry about all of the details and the nuts and bolts later. But again, this is all about just getting you to think a little bit. And like I said, we can talk more in in a nerdy way about all of the velocity factors and materials and that type of stuff, and get into that more. But you can always upgrade your coax after you activate maybe a couple of 100 times. I've already done that a couple of times in my kits, and you understand your setup more. That's really kind of the key. You understand those two other pieces on the other ends of those coax. Those are the keys to really making coax shine and do its job efficiently, is because you understand the source, meaning your RF, and back to that garden hose approach. Your RF is the source and pushing it through the coax out to the antenna. If the antenna is not efficient, the antenna is not tuned for the frequencies you're using and operating at optimum performance, then it doesn't really matter what you put through that pipe or how you're creating it. It's still going to be garbage, and you're just going to be putting stuff out there that, you might not be putting your best foot forward. So let's go to the next slide here. So here's the kind of things, again, all these infographics are available. So if you want to use these, I'll throw them up on our wiki there, and let me know there in the chat. And you can use these with your club presentations or wherever you want. So yeah, like I said, go activate, make contacts, have fun. And that's the big keyword there, fun. If you're not having fun, come see me. We'll make sure you are. And then, once you get to the point of really learning what, those components do, then yeah, talk about how you do, use better coax, lighter coax for different, modes. If you're a SOTA operator, you're going to obviously have a different series of coax use levels and uses than, say, someone who does POTA from, a local park. Or maybe you do POTA and you hike into your thing, and maybe you're working on... I can't remember what Gary's award was. So if you can remind me in the chat that he put out there for the new POTA, was it donkey? Oh man, it's gonna annoy me. Someone look it up and let me know. But yeah, if you like to hike into your POTA spots and operate from there, yeah, coax is gonna play into that factor. So you're not gonna want to lug a 50-foot piece of coax with you. You're gonna want to operate with the most efficient, smallest version you can, just for light and portability. Yes, actually, yeah, that's another good. You can use a lot. I've built my first antennas there, Mike, using RG58 as one of the elements there instead of speaker wire, and it still kind of worked. I mean, it's not the most efficient, but it's what you got and it's what you use. All right, so curious. I'm going to ask a few guys. What do you guys? If you already mentioned already, but go ahead and sound out there in the chat. What coax are you guys running in the field? Any of the stuff that I touched upon, any of the stuff you're using? And I'm curious, once we get a little feedback from that. Thank you, Roger, the Pack Mule Award. Yes, that's a perfect example of, striking a balance of coax, weight, and efficiency. So you're not going to always bring LMR 400 out with you when you're doing the Pack Mule. So first one, obviously, what coax you run in the field, shout it out, let me know. And then I'm going to ask the hard question. Who here is still using the same coax from their very first activation? And be honest. I will have to say that I don't replace my coax often enough, but if I go back through my bags, I would be ashamed to share with you how probably at least two of my antenna bags that have coax in them probably need to be replaced, and they're a little bit long overdue. I don't spend a lot or enough time making sure the maintenance on that coax is done and everything's all good. Okay, ABR, nice. And 174, really good stuff. I like those FME connectors. ABR did a really good job with those in making them modular. I thought that was a really cool way to, basically optimize coax in a way that, you can use for multiple formats. Okay. TJ is saying RG8X. Okay. Truly active. Okay. Well, it's totally fine. You're still young. You're still, getting your POTA muscle underneath you. So no problems there, man. And yeah, as long as you're keeping good care, you're cleaning coax down, you're checking it often, it is very much the PSA that I'll say that, if you haven't, taken time to check your coax, now is the time to do that, before you get back out there and start doing more activations. Because when I was doing a lot of traveling for my job, I would very much, throw my bag in the back, not even think about it, and then bring it on home. And the only thing that would really get TLC and love and care is batteries, because I knew if I didn't charge them up, that I'd be doomed for the next one. Okay, Mike's RG316, nice job for QRP. Good choice there. Good light, good coax for that type of operation. The 400. Okay, 902. Yeah, definitely needed for that for higher band, and for sure. Amazon. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there are some really good suggestions and recommendations on Amazon. Amazon can be hit or miss, as we all know. I mean, sometimes, things can be harder to find versus, say, going to some of the more reputable sites like Gigaparts and DX Engineering and Ham Radio Outlet. But you can definitely find some good deals if you know exactly what you're looking at. And so, buy what you can afford the first time, try it out, learn your radios, learn your antennas, and then, go back and upgrade your coax. And, just make a mental note that you should do that as you start to do your POTA activations here. We could do that. Like I said, I alluded to earlier, we could talk about connectors and ends. Shannon will be back. I'll have to ping her because I'm trying to get Shannon to do more in terms of maybe being part. Not that she just does more already, but maybe have her host a show in the future. So, as we're getting closer to maybe the International Women's Day stuff, we want to talk about YLs and POTA and that type of stuff and all the things that they deal with, which I think would be kind of a cool topic. But yeah, connector ends, that's a really good idea for sure. I think I didn't bring one with me as an example, but we can definitely get into more of, those if people are interested in talking more around that. There we go. That was weird. All right, we back now? No shitter break. Sorry. Man, that is weird. That's just decided to. Why not? I mean, you guys have not had a drinking game in a while, so sorry we weren't on our toes there. Yes, Cinna Hunter. Yes, it got some QRM for sure. Yeah, that's what I get for using RG 174 mic, when I try to, stay connected to the internet. Excellent. So, yeah. And then, one last little quick question. I'm always curious to see, if you were operating at 1 watt, so say for those that aren't on one, QRP kind of style, put yourself in the mindset of QRP. Would you carry a lighter coax, or would you just do, when you were operating at 1 watt? Yeah, my connector's got water in them. Sean, is that what you're getting at? All right. Very cool. It was awesome to see. We had 20 on the stream today. It's really good. And yeah, Shannon will be back next week. So those that are looking for her, she is in Disney, enjoying the Mickey Mouse, money pit there that I call it. 240. Okay, good at coax there for that. Yeah, coax is definitely, I think, important at QRP levels. You can kind of get away with it a little bit because when you operate QRP, you're operating smaller form factor, so maybe you can run a shorter distances to get better efficiency out of it. So, maybe 10-foot lengths aren't a bad idea, or 15-foot, and still be able to get that 1 watt efficiently down the wire. But again, radio tuning is always a good thing too, as well, especially if you're running that lowest power, getting the most efficiency out of, if you're operating voice or out of your, digital signal for CW or whatnot. So all good. Good idea, Mike. Yeah, I've seen a lot of those videos. Yeah, definitely a good option for sure. Yeah, definitely a good suggestion there. RG8X, if you got plenty of it, TJ, then might as well use it all. All right, well, we are here wrapping up the very end of this, so I appreciate all you guys hanging out with me today. It was definitely, a very light topic. I didn't think this would be a showstopper. Probably won't be on the top 10 list for a lot of folks here, but if you're still dicking around with coax and still trying to figure all this stuff out along the way, hopefully this will give you a little direction to kind of fall into. But if folks are interested and you want to see more on the connectors and talking about coax velocity and all the nerdiness around that, yeah, we can do a future episode on that. And really get into all of those cool little things, maybe some of the tools that you crimp for coax, as I've got a set that I always love and use heavily. I am very much I don't like to spend a lot of times with just a pair of scissors and my cheap ass soldering iron. I want to get it done and get it done fast, and then get on the road. So I'm very much all about those cool little tools and things to make coax assembly quick. Okay. Yeah, we can definitely talk more on that, James, for sure. So we'll add that to the list there. So, all right. Well, last kind of thing here. Just if you get anything out of this, and maybe you just tuned in a little late, coax does matter. It's not the hero of that story. So back to that infographic. Your antenna is the hero. So that's why all of us ham YouTubers do antenna reviews, because there's not one antenna that solves all problems, and there's not one antenna that's more efficient than others. They all have a different need and different purpose, and that is a whole ball of wax that I, being a 30-year ham, still haven't gotten my head around fully. And I learned from smarter folks like Mike into MAK and others that know antennas well. And can and Walt. I mean, Walt's. If you haven't gone out and get a book, if you get any book, go get Walt's antenna book. Well worth the read there, and really, really good in terms of helping you understand and get your gray matter filled with the right antenna understanding and knowledge. So definitely go pick that up. And so let's kind of wrap it up. So with that, I would say if you haven't already, please head on over to the Discord. So we're going to keep picking this channel up, topic up a little bit more. There's a link there for the Discord there. Head on over, come be part of it, come join in. We're over in the Brew and Activate channel. So we always love to say hello and check stuff out. I've got a few shirts, and Mike, I know a few people joined in that I'm kind of testing out, that I'm looking for people's input and feedback on. Trying to bring the co-ed naked theme back, as it's kind of been a thing that folks have known me by, and I think we need to do a POTA version. So I got a couple out there that I'm kind of testing. So I'd love your feedback on that. Love to see what people think and whether or not we should bring back the good old co-ed naked t-shirts and do it in a ham radio style. So as always, thank you guys. Appreciate it. We had a good crew here this morning, and appreciate all you guys for tuning in to Brew Activate. I hope you enjoyed this. I mean, all of our conversations around coax, I always appreciate all your feedback, and love to hear whether or not, this was helpful for you guys. And you can let us know, obviously, over on the Discord. And, as you always say, remember, whether you're activating, you're chasing, that key, and I'll always say it, and I'll say it loudly, is to have fun. Stay safe, keep exploring, and until next time, I'm going to say, keep your radios on, the PTT down, and POTA on, guys, and enjoy Winter Field Day if you can.